My 10th video. You know what? I feel as though I should do something big for my 10th anniversary. Tell you what, I'll look at one of the absolute best figures ever made for any franchise. One of the crown jewels in my collection. Now, where did I leave that box? Deathsaurus, the iconic villain from Transformers Victory, which, you know, was the show, and it had Star Saber and Catholicism. Okay, I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list. But the important thing with him is that he had a really cool toy. An iconic piece of G1 glory that was surprisingly never released in the States. I know that Victory was a Japan exclusive, but that didn't stop the Headmasters or the first Jetfire, and he was from a different franchise. Regardless, he remains something of an iconic holy grail for Transformers collectors, often commanding high prices on eBay or Yahoo auctions. Surprisingly, the character has never been properly revisited, with only repaints of other figures stealing his identity. That's stolen valor, you bastard! I guess his size is already a big stepping stone, and on top of that, he's the lead in a pretty obscure part of the franchise unless you live in Japan. So revisiting him seemingly wasn't going to happen. But thanks to the people voting with their wallets, the tides of history change with the power of Haslab. Haslab is Hasbro's glorified pre-order page posing as a crowdfunding page, and it's geared towards funding niche toys that Hasbro wouldn't normally fund for a number of reasons, such as size, obscurity, asking price, or sexual appeal. In all seriousness though, I think it's actually kind of a cool idea. At first when I heard about the idea, I was skeptical, like, what? Hasbro big company, why they need my money? But then when you remember what goes into funding, engineering, designing, releasing toys these size, and with actual function and aren't just glorified statues, you stop playing armchair economist, it actually makes a lot of sense. Plus, this is more, as I joked, essentially a pre-ordering service with all the creation updates and bonus tiers that come with crowdfunding, and most of the projects have been successfully funded. Not all of them were success stories. I mean, no one was going to pay $300 for that giant Cookie Monster plushie, or a big expensive tie-in to one of those crap Star Wars shows. I don't know which one. There are too many of them and they all blend together. Deathsaurus was the third Transformers campaign for Haslab, after War for Cybertron
This is Unicorn!
After War for Cybertron Unicron and Victory Saber, and was the most successful Transformers campaign up to that point, and it's easy to see why. On top of the, comparably, low price of $180 compared to a lot of the other campaigns, the page looked awesome with all sorts of fun multi-tier rewards to like more weapons and his sweet-ass throne. And like mentioned before, Deathsaurus hadn't gotten a proper revisit since the original toy from the 80s. So this was a big deal, but that's enough history. Let's open this thing up. Can we just admire this amazing box art drawn by Guido Guidi? The super contrasting colors, Deathsaurus sitting proudly on his throne. This is an art piece in and of itself. And like all great art, we must take good care of it. Let's look at the accessories before the big man himself. We got some purple explosion effects, as is mandatory for collector's figures for some reason. We also get a display bracket. We have a base and his mighty throne, which looks all red and lumpy, made of the flesh of victims this space bastard has killed. Oh, and even better, all his weapons can slip onto the back for easy storage. I absolutely love this. It's such a nice way of keeping everything so tidy, so you don't have to keep everything attached to the figure or in a plastic bag or something. Well worth getting to that third tier for. Then we got two Micromasters that came with Deathy here as a treat for making this the biggest Transformers campaign ever. And bear in mind, these weren't even hinted at until after it was funded. We had these adorably tiny figures of Boater and Peepo, and yes, that's his name, Peepo, because that's the Japanese onomatopoeia for an ambulance siren. It's also the greatest name for a Transformer ever. The accessory train continues with the Breast Force, and yes, that's their name, not Chest Force like the instructions say. Their name is Breast Force. Anyways, these little guys form Deathsaurus' chest with Eagle Breast and Tiger Breast, who not only form their own animals, but Tiger Breast can form Deathsaurus' bow and arrow, and Eagle Breast can form Deathsaurus' gun. And the final round of accessories, because hell yeah, we earned all of this, includes his big old scimitar for decapitations, his flail, an arrow for his bow, a big off space gun, and a shield that's used to also form his tail. By the way, just a heads up, we haven't even started the figure. God, this comes with so much, it's wonderful. And here he is, the main man himself. If he doesn't scream raw sexual appeal, I don't even know what does. This color scheme is already wonderful, with bright blues, gold highlights, and light blue plastic for his wings and joints. He's a very loud character, but still has dignity and grace. And I especially love the vac metallization on his chest and head pieces. It just adds to that pay attention to me bombast the character deserves, just like his bright red codpiece. And you can't forget his wings, which might be his defining feature. Plenty of Transformers have wings, whether they be jet wings or animal wings, but Duffy's wings are practically another weapon. These big Reaper sights are giving him a raw, powerful, sexual presence no one else has. The back is also one of the cleaner large-scale Transformers I've ever seen, with only really his head for his dragon form acting as kibble. It's also sadly the bit that kinda lets me down. It's this bright white color which is a little lacking, especially compared to the awesome vac metallized silver the original head had. Kinda feel as though they should have gone with a metallic gray, gunmetal, or white rather than this, though I suppose if you hook him to the throne, the vac metal is just begging to be scratched off. See also Ultra Jetstorm. I also love when you perform a mastectomy on him, there's a flap inside so that his guts aren't completely exposed. You can also put eagle breast inside along with tiger breast, or if you're like me, putting in a Lego Simpsons Apu inside. Though I must say the chest is probably another weak point of the figure. It's kind of a struggle to get stuff in sometimes. It's not a massive pain, but given how pricey this figure was, you kinda don't wanna mess with him too much and risk— Just kidding, they detach. But now let's get on with the articulation. Wings, head, shoulders, forearms, wrist, fingers, upper legs, knees, and ankle pivots. Dear God, you can practically pose this guy doing anything. He just naturally goes into any pose you need him to. Perfect for any stop motion shenanigans.
Boy Kissers Central.
Transformation wise, you know what? This guy's transformation is so fun and so clean, I don't want to do narration over footage. I'ma sing a song. With a purple face and a golden crest, he'll summon up monsters from his breast. He hasn't had a figure since 1989. He finally came back for the Generations toy line. Oh, he's made by Haslab. Here comes Deathsaurus. Yeah! The transformation is nice and simple for a collector's grade figure. Everything clicks together well, everything is so well compact and snappy. I especially love how the arms are stored so effectively in the back, though I'm not a fan of the static leg tail piece. And the final result is a quite excellent giant kaiju chicken.
Mega Ultra Chicken.
While I am bummed about the head a bit, it's still so cool with a very angular, intimidating beak, piercing red eyes. And even in this form, there's plenty of articulation on the wings, head, legs, and arms. Yeah, let's talk about these toothpicks. They're just so tiny, and while yes, they were like that on the original toy, and yes, they do store away nice and cleanly, it would have been nice to have some slight beefier python. But they are still able to hold his rifle, which, come on, that's hilarious. And it's a minor complaint overall, it's still fitting for what's essentially a kaiju for Transformers, and have it be the enemy of a Gundam for Transformers. And this is where I normally ended, but I can't help but feel like there's more I could add. Because while it is an excellent figure, it is in limited supply and quite pricey on eBay. What if you didn't want to spend quite as much money? Well, it's time to bring in Deathsaurus' non-union Chinese equivalent. Now, where'd I put that box? Ah! Welcome, gentlemen, to the world of Planet X's Ismenios, a third-party figure of Deathsaurus. Third-party Transformers, the wonderful result of weird, confusing copyright laws that I don't even pretend to understand. Now to clarify, these aren't knockoffs, as while third-party figures are also unlicensed, they have a different purpose. Knockoffs are made to blatantly rip off specific figures, while third-party figures are more so made with the intent of being roughly on par with the real thing, usually with their own molding, though there are some third-party reproductions of some older toys. Me personally, I highly approve of this, as long as they aren't blatantly copying official molds, which has happened, but that's beside the point. Planet X is one of the more prominent third-party figure makers, mostly taking design cues from the War for Cybertron games or the IDW comics. I'm not an expert on third-party figure makers, but as a general rule, they make very high-quality figures, roughly on par with a lot of Masterpiece Transformer figures. Certainly better than some other third-party figure makers like Vans Toys. But what's especially impressive to me about their Deathsaurus figure, they made this before the Haslab campaign. In fact, before there was even a hint of the Haslab campaign. So this is a completely original sculpt made to fit roughly in line with other Masterpiece figures, including a healthy helping of die-cast metal. I've already gone ahead and given him the upgrade kit to make him look a lot more G1 rather than his IDW design, because why would anyone want that one? IDW, more like, I don't want. Hasbro certainly didn't. Given he's more IDW inspired, some notable design changes include much more prominent gold chocolate bars on his forearms, much more prominent vents throughout, spikier shoulders, and of course, thicker thighs to take lives. Also, given he's more Masterpiece inspired, the paint scheme is more of a darker purple to fit a bit more in with the overall color scheme of those figures. Overall design is really nice. It's still clearly Deathsaurus while aiming for its own thing. It feels like it still fits in well with the G1 aesthetic too. It's also streamlined well too, and isn't a clunky mess like that awful Masterminds Deathsaurus figure. Less graceful is the back, which, yeah. While the head serving as where the wings clip in is a nice idea, it results in a pretty bulky backpack, and the arms and head just kinda dangling off like that is not pleasing to look at. And the legs for the chicken mode being so far out looks really ugly on robot mode, whereas they sit flush on Haslabs. Oh, and as far as accessories goes, you have a tiger breast and an eagle breast, which are nowhere near the quality of Haslab's ones, unfortunately. Also, no flap on the door for this one. So, with no chest, there's a big empty space for storing your Penguins of Madagascar Kinder Egg figurine. You get the sword that was in the IDW comics, which is a pretty sweet blade, even if I prefer the scimitar. And you get his combo Mason laser rifle, which is just awesome, and for some reason doesn't come with the Haslab one. Oh well, it fits alright in Haslab's hand. Articulation is almost identical to Haslab's, with the only thing missing being the upper leg articulation. So overall great. And now you get finger articulation, which I'm mixed on. On the one hand, it is awesome to have him be able to give the finger at whim, but on the other hand, the problem with articulated fingers is the smaller they go, the more likely they are to ping off if you mess with them ever so slightly. Still overall a positive, but it's just from my experience. I got big hands. Oh no! He's called Ismenios, but he's still Deathsaurus. Yeah. Transformation is very similar to Haslab's, but a bit clunkier in some areas, such as with the arms. They just aren't as effective as Haslab's, with the fingers sometimes pinging off, and the back panel meant to hide the fist sometimes gets stuck inside. But I am really impressed by the leg engineering, as unlike Haslab's, which was Hard's former partially, Planet X's has the rest of the tail stored in the legs, which is really clever and feels really good to unfold. Also, on a side note, the ratchet joints in this figure. Haslab has ratchet joints and they feel good to twist and turn, but something about ratchet joints in die-cast metal just sounds And is it just me? Or is this dragon mode even better than Haslab's? While the arms look silly in robot mode, there is something really nice about having much bigger arms in the dragon mode. Also, the tail is articulated, something that the Haslab figure didn't have. And it feels huge, like it feels like Deathy doubled in size with this transformation. And with the upgrade kit, you get that awesome vac metal head again. So, I'm torn here. Obviously, both figures here are getting perfect 5-star sabers out of 5, but which one is better? Planet X Deathsaurus has die-cast metal and the better dragon, while Haslab comes with way more stuff and the better robot. At the moment, Planet X is cheaper, but not by a crazy amount, though that could change in the future. You know what? It doesn't matter, because we all know the real winner is Peepo! All hail Peepo!